Well, welcome to week 6 of Fridays with the Dean. As this week we have moved from level 4 of the COVID-19 alert levels to level 3. Little has changed in the way we are operating here at Holy Trinity Cathedral, and we will continue to keep you informed as to what will happen when we move into level 2. We're not sure what that will look like yet, and we won't know until the 11th of May when we find out when we can move out of this level 3. And so we don't want to make any assumptions about what might be at level 2 until we know what the guidelines from the government and from the diocese will be at that point. And so in the meantime, we continue to gather virtually, both for our liturgical services and for our catch-ups on a Friday, and for the other ways that we are continuing to support one another in this time of being mostly at home, for some of us back at work a little bit more this week. I'm going to share with you this week a meditation from Richard Rohr that I have found extremely helpful in my thinking about the space and the time we are in. And I hope that some of what I say might resonate with you from Richard Rohr's meditation. The text of this meditation will be in our weekly pew sheet that many of you who are on our roll and we have your email addresses get emailed, or you can find it on our website as well if you would like to go back to the text of what I'm about to share with you from Richard Rohr. I get Richard Rohr's meditations each day. Some days I read them and think that was interesting. Other days I read them and they sit with me in my prayers and my wonderings all day or for a day or two. And occasionally something comes that moves me deeply and sits with me for some time. This is one of the meditations that came almost more than a week ago and has sat with me, and I keep going back to read it. Richard has called it Between Two Worlds, Liminal Space. He writes this: liminal space is an inner state and sometimes an outer situation where we can begin to think and act in new ways. It is where we are betwixt and between, having left one room or stage of life, but not yet entered the next. We usually enter liminal space when our former way of being is challenged or changed, perhaps when we lose a job or a loved one, during illness, at the birth of a child, or a major relocation. It is graced time, but often doesn't feel graced in any way. In such space, we are not certain or in control. This global pandemic we now face is an example of an immense collective liminal space. The very vulnerability and openness of liminal space allows room for something genuinely new to happen. We are empty and receptive, erased tablets, waiting for new words. Liminal space is where we are most teachable, often because we are most humbled. Liminality keeps us in an ongoing state of shadow boxing instead of ego confirmation, struggling with the hidden side of things and calling so-called normalcy into creative question. It is no surprise then that we generally avoid liminal space. Much of the work of authentic spirituality and human development is to get people into liminal space and to keep them there long enough that they can learn something essential and new. Many spiritual giants like St. Francis, Julian of Norwich, Dorothy Day, and Mahatma Gandhi tried to live their entire lives in permanent liminality, on the edge or periphery of the dominant culture. This in-between place is free of illusions and false payoffs. It invites us to discover and live from the broader perspectives and with much deeper seeing. In liminal space, we sometimes need to not do and not perform according to our usual successful patterns. We actually need to fail abruptly and deliberately falter to understand other dimensions of life. We need to be silent instead of speaking, experience emptiness instead of fullness, anonymity instead of persona, and pennilessness instead of plenty. In liminal space, we descend and intentionally do not come back out or up immediately. It takes time, but this experience can help us re-enter the world with freedom and new creative approaches to life. I imagine that even if you've never heard the word liminal before, you likely have a sense of what I'm talking about. It would be difficult to exist in this time of global crisis and not feel caught between at least two worlds, the one we knew and the one to come. Our consciousness and that of future generations has been changed. We cannot put the genie back in the bottle. Wise words from Richard Rohr that cause us to stop and pause and consider our place and space in this time of COVID-19 crisis. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of Holy Trinity Cathedral, both for your prayers and your financial contributions that you continue to offer us, and for all of you who are keeping in touch with one another and making sure that people are okay in their bubbles, for all those essential workers in our midst who are keeping us safe and making sure that this week we can get a decent coffee. So take care, and we will look forward to being together again next Friday as we live through this level 3 of our lockdown. And I wish you every blessing, and take care of one another and of yourself.